Good morning. I'm Mahesh Kumar, working as Assistant Professor in the Department of Computer Science and Engineering at B.V. Raju Institute of Technology, Narsapur campus. I'm dealing with the course Computational Thinking and Programming. Now I'm going to discuss about control structures for solving computational problems. So in the previous sessions, we have discussed the different control structures like simple if else, nested if else. So whenever we require to check multiple number of conditions, which control structures we have to use. So that we will discuss in this particular session. In the previous sessions, we discussed about simple if else statement and nested if statements. So we know that how to check a single condition, how to check two conditions. But when we require to check multiple number of conditions, that is, the program has to decide after checking multiple number of conditions. So that decisions can be taken by the program by making use of if-else ladder. If-else ladder is a statement where it will be used for checking multiple number of conditions. So we will go into the topic. So what is the purpose of using else-if ladder statement? The else-if ladder statement is used whenever we require to check multi-path decisions. So when a program has to take a decision of multi-path, we make use of else-if ladder. So if we require to use this particular else-if ladder statement in the program, we have to follow the syntax. So if we observe this particular syntax, we will make use of a if statement, which will evaluate the expression, which is the first expression. So based on the evaluation of this expression, if the expression is evaluated to true or false. So based on the evaluation of the expression, the program control will be transferred into the block of if, or it may travel or transfer into other part of the program. So if the expression 1 is evaluated to true, then the control will be transferred into the if block and the first statement will be executed. If the expression is evaluated to false, then the program will test the second expression, which will be given to else if statements. So when this expression 2 is evaluated to true or false, so based on the evaluation of the expression 2, again the program will decide whether to execute statement 2 in else if block or it has to travel to the next else if statement. So like this, when we use else if ladder, we are going to check multiple number of expressions. So this is the requirement when we require to check multiple expressions in a program. Now we can check n number of expressions using this else if ladder. Assume that if none of the expression have been evaluated to true, then what is going to be happen? So when none of the expressions are evaluated to true, then else if ladder contains a else block. So if none of the expressions are evaluated to true, then the control will be transferred into the else block of else if ladder and the statements which are in this particular else block gets executed. So this is how we will make use of else if ladder to check multiple expressions and decide where the control has to be traveled. So when we make use of this particular else if ladder, so what is the working of this statement? We just see the working of this particular statement. So already discussed in the syntax. The if statement will test the expression 1. If the expression 1 is evaluated to true, then whatever the statements we have in if block gets executed. So the statement 1 which is inside if block gets executed. If the expression 1 is evaluated to false, then expression 2 is evaluated, which is being inside else if statement. So if expression 2 is evaluated to true, then statement 2 gets executed, which is the body of else if statement. Like this, all the conditions whichever we require to test will be evaluated. Now, when none of the expressions are evaluated to true, then the else block gets executed. So if none of the expressions are evaluated to true, then the default statement which exists in else block gets executed. However, after this flow, whatever the statements we will be having in the program after else if ladder will be executed in a sequence. So this is the working of else if ladder. Now when we use this particular control structure in the program, how it will affect the control of the program. So we can see this in the program in this particular flowchart. So the condition 1 will be tested first. If this condition is evaluated to true, the control will travel in true path, and whatever the statements we have in this particular block gets executed. When condition is evaluated to false, the control will travel in false path and the next condition will be evaluated, which is after the first condition. Again, if this condition is evaluated, if it is true, then control will travel in the true path. Whatever the statements we have in that particular block gets executed. If it is evaluated to false, then the control will travel in false path and the next condition will be evaluated. So this will be carried out until all the conditions are tested. If none of the conditions are evaluated to true, then we will be moving directly to else block and the statements inside else block gets executed. So this is how the effect of the program flow will be affected when we use this else if ladder in the program. Now we will be seeing with an example how to make use of this statement. So we'll be writing a program to check multiple conditions. So what is the requirement of our program is we need to find out what is the grade of a student for a given subject marks. The program has to read the marks entered for the subject and it has to decide and tell what is the grade of the student for that particular subject. So we'll be making using only one subject marks. We will input the marks of a subject. The program has to read that marks and the program has to decide and convey to the user that this is the grade of the student. So in this case, we have to check multiple number of conditions. When I say grade of a subject, so if a student scores 90 and above up to 100, then we will be giving as O grade. If the marks are in between 80 and 90, then the grade will be A plus. If the marks are in between 70 and 80, then we will be giving A grade. So like this, we have to check multiple number of conditions. Based on that, we have to decide the grade. So we will see a simple example. In this case, in this scenario, we have to use else if later. So first we will define main function. In this particular program, now the program has to ask user to enter the input value. So we have to convey the message to the user to enter the marks of subject. So this message will be conveyed to the user. Now the program has to read this as an input and it has to remember the marks of this particular subject. So we have to make use of scan function to read the input value from the console, and the input value is integer type. So we have to specify %d format specifier, and after that the program reads the input from the console. That input should be stored in the program. So when I say store in the program, we should make use of variables in the program. So we have to declare a variable which can store integer value. So declare a variable of integer type. So I will be giving the name of the variable as marks. So inside this variable, whatever the input have been read by the program has to be stored. So store at the address of marks. So input has been read successfully by the program. Now what is the task of this particular program? The program has to decide and tell what is the grade of the student. So it has to compare the marks, it has to check the marks of the student which has been entered as input. This marks will be in a range of values. I said 90 to 100, 80 to 90, 70 to 80, etc. So we need to check multiple number of conditions here. So we have to make use of else if later. So first we will take if statement. Recall the syntax of else if later. We will be having if statement and we have to pass first expression in this if statement. So what is the first expression that we will pass in this particular program? If we will be checking whether the marks are less than or equal to 100 is the first condition that we need to test. At the same time, the marks should be greater than or equal to 90. So once you check this particular condition, we need to check multiple conditions here. The first condition is the input value, whether it is less than or equal to 100, that is to be tested. And second condition is the input value should be greater than equal to 90. That means we are checking whether the marks are in between 90 and 100. So if the marks are in between 90 and 100, we will be conveying to the user that his grade is O grade. Right? So when this message has to be conveyed, if both the conditions are true, then we have to convey the grade as O. So both the conditions, the mark should be less than or equal to 100 and the mark should be greater than or equal to 100. So combine these two conditions in such a way that we have to get a true value. So we know that in a programming, whenever we need to combine multiple conditions into a single condition, in this case, we will make use of a logical operator. And what logical operator we have to make use here? So our requirement is to combine these two conditions in such a way that we have to get a true value. So I will combine this two statements. That means both the conditions should be true. So our concentration is When both the conditions are true, we have to print the grade as O. So we have to combine these two statements with logical AND operator. So when you combine these two statements with logical AND operator, then the grade will be displayed as O. So I will combine these statements. Right. So both the conditions are combined with logical AND. So when both the conditions are true, the message O grade will be displayed as an output. So this is the first expression that we need to check in the program. Now assume that the first expression is false. Then we need to go to check the second condition. So recall the syntax. So if first expression is evaluated to false, then we have to check the second expression with the help of else if statement. So what is the second statement we have to write in the program? So if the marks are not in between 90 and 100, it should be in between 80 and 90. We have to check the second condition. So make use of this marks, check marks, whether it is less than or equal to 90, less than 90, right? It should be less than 90. And at the same time, you have to check marks are greater than equals to 80. So now you can check the condition. So we are checking whether the marks are in between 80 and 90. So if the marks are in between 80 and 90, then we have to convey to the user that the grade of the student is A plus. A plus. So this is the second condition we will be checking. Like this, write all the conditions for this grades. So third condition will be else if. We have to check whether the marks are in between 70 and 80. So less than 80, the marks should be less than 80, as well as the mark should be greater than equal to 70. So when the third condition is true, we have to display the grade as A. Right? So like this, we will be writing for checking B grade, and we'll be checking for B plus B grade. So we'll be changing the conditions here now. Fourth condition, the mark should be in between 60 and 70. We'll write less than 70, and mark should be greater than equal to 60 is B grade, B plus grade, and the marks less than 60 but it is greater than equal to 50, we display the grade as B. Last, if the marks are less than 50 and the marks are greater than equals to 40, right, the marks in between 40 and 50, then the last grade will be C. So these are the multiple conditions that we need to check in the program. So once again we'll repeat it. The marks between 90 100, the marks between 80 90, the marks between 70 80, the marks between 60 70, 50 and 60, and last 40 and 50. Now we know that if the mark secured by the student is less than 40, he will be considered as fail. right? So now how we will write the code here is, now if none of the conditions are satisfied up to this, so how many conditions we are checking here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If 6 conditions are false, then by default we have to say the student has failed in the subject. So that particular thing, that particular case, you have to make use of else block and print on the console. So if none of the above conditions are satisfied, the grade of the student is fail. Right? So this is how we will make use of else if ladder in our program. And all the conditions should be combined in such a way that we should have both the conditions true. So logical AND operator is used here. Now, so this is a simple program of making use of else if ladder. So anything else in this? So every print statement we will make use of a new line, we'll print it in a new line. So this is how we will write program by making use of else if ladder. So we'll run it and we will check the output of the code. So this is the logic of the program. Now, so it has been executed successfully. Run the program. So the program will ask to enter the marks of the subject. So we will be giving the marks as 60. Now when I give input value as 60, the program displayed the grade of the subject is B+. So we'll run another test case. So we'll be giving 90, 5, 96. The program will display O grade. And last condition, if none of the conditions are satisfied, it has to display the student has failed in the subject. So we will give less than 40 marks. We'll give 35. So you can see we got a message called failed. So in this kind of scenarios, we will be making use of else if ladder in the program. Thank you.
Like, share and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for more updates.